Hi, I'm Joe Dante for Trailers from Hell. My first movie was a comedy about a fictional movie studio called Miracle Pictures. Their slogan was, if it's a good picture, it's a miracle. I never thought that in my lifetime I would actually ever see a real miracle picture, but now I have. And it's The Other Side of the Wind, a movie that was miraculously recovered and brought back from oblivion by the heroic efforts of a number of people, including Peter Bogdanovich and Frank Marshall and Bob Murawski, and a number of other people who have managed to somehow bring this picture back from the dead. I saw some of this movie about 25 years ago in a 40-minute rough cut that Welles had made while he was still trying to find financing for the movie. And he was also doing a talk show pilot. And as was often the case with Welles, he just could never find a way to finish his pilot, and he kept reshooting it. And so he would sometimes have his friend Gary Graver, who shot this particular movie during all this time, to get a whole bunch of film students and shoot them as an audience for this show that Welles had already done, a talk show. And ask a lot of questions that could be then edited into the show, which is a show that was constantly being edited.
Yeah? This may sound like a stupid question, but you both say that you're not the best directors of yourselves, so why do you do it?
And so the 40 minutes that I saw was, I thought, a knockout. I thought it was phenomenal. And but I never really actually thought that I would ever get to see the movie, because the bromide was that it was lost. It was in the vaults in Iran. It was never going to be found. During our podcast, our Trailers from Hell podcast, The Movies That Made Me, we had as our guest William Friedkin, whose favorite movie is Citizen Kane. And Bill was appalled at the idea that The Other Side of the Wind was being released, and because he thought that it was a mess, and he thought that it didn't reflect Welles's intentions, and he was just very down on the whole project. But I respectfully disagree. And I think that not just the story of how this picture came out, but the film itself is really a landmark. And I was extremely disappointed that the Academy did not recognize any of the efforts that went on to resurrect this film. There is a book, Orson Welles' Last Movie by Josh Karp, which explains how this thing came together. And there's also two really good documentaries about it on Netflix, which was, again, partly responsible for the resurrection of this film. We see the last night in the life of the sexually confused macho director Jake Hannaford, played by John Huston, through fragmented clips shot by party guests and film students, making this a found footage movie before that was even a word. It's a fascinating movie, not just for its unorthodox journey to the screen, but because it's Welles at his most adventurous, shooting in a style completely unlike anything he did before, and confronting themes he never tackled before. Only the clips of the film within the film, which are supposed to be parodying Antonioni, look particularly Wellesian. Discount the rumors that Welles never intended to finish this film because he was disappointed in Huston's performance. Huston is as good here as he was in Chinatown, and it's a treat to see the lost performances of Bogdanovich, Susan Strasberg, Cameron Mitchell, Paul Stewart, and the Alzheimer's-afflicted Edmond O'Brien, who Welles called a magnificent ruin of a man. Frank Marshall once told me that O'Brien jealously guarded a suitcase he carried around with him, which, when opened, was full of light bulbs. I particularly regret that my late friend Gary Graver, who photographed this movie in pieces over a period of a decade, did not live to see it completed.
Movie. A real movie.
The Other Side of the Wind.
Well, here it is. If anybody wants to see it.